Alright everybody, Finn's Chan here. Today is going to be a little different than my normal video because I'm going to be reading from a blog post that was made from a father telling his story about how his daughter was groomed by pedophiles and was nearly abducted by them and taken away from him forever. I implore you, please listen to the whole story because it's very informative, and please make sure that if you have small children or you know somebody that has young children, you give them this video, you link this video. I want everybody who sees this to mirror this video and get this out, because this is how these people work. And if we're going to better protect children from these monsters, then we need to know how they operate. There is going to be a link to the original blog post in the description below, so let's get into this. Jim decided to share the story of how his daughter was groomed and abducted by pedophiles in order to help other children and parents. Her mother and I divorced when Lucy was 5. Her mother has some serious health issues, so Lucy has lived with me almost exclusively for 6 years. We are very close and there is a lot of love, laughter, and music in our home. She's my little princess. We live in a small rural town. It's quiet and nothing much happens. I thought it was a safe place to raise my little girl. I work around 40 hours a week, but I don't want to say what I do or where I work. I was always aware of pedophiles and grooming, obviously, but I never thought it would happen to my little girl. I thought she was safe here with me. I was wrong. Looking back, I was extremely naive, which is why I'm doing this. I wish I had been aware of the scale, method, and ferocity of online grooming. Even before Lucy left the local primary school, most of her friends had iPhones and iPads, Facebook and Snapchat. So for her 10th birthday, I bought her a secondhand iPhone. She loved it, and it was great for me to be able to contact her, no matter where she was. I thought it was a good move safety-wise. I think we talked a little bit about online safety, but I know she had covered it as part of her lessons at school. She seemed aware of it. I thought it was too early to have a conversation about porn or any of that stuff, because Lucy still played with dolls and hadn't started puberty to any degree. I felt she was too young. Lucy had a close circle of friends, and she'd have sleepovers, go on shopping trips, or to the local parks. She was a normal kid. It was such a small town. Everyone looks out for each other. I always knew where she was and who she was with. Well, I thought I did. For me, everything changed on Saturday, the 10th of September, 2016. Lucy was having a sleepover at a friend's house, which was in the same town, less than 2 miles away. She had been there many times, and the parents were good people. I had no concerns at all. It was nice for me to have a night off. I adore my daughter, but a day and night to myself is a rare and welcome treat. Making dinner, I was hit by a sudden impulse to ring Lucy and see how she was doing. She's a real daddy's girl, and we send lots of messages. It was a powerful, instinctive urge, which was unsettling. Her phone went straight to answer phone, which isn't anything unusual. Signal can be patchy in rural areas. I sent a message asking if she was having fun with kisses and hearts, and asked her to send me a message when she could. After dinner, I rang her friend's landline, but no answer. I remember having a feeling that something wasn't right, but sat down, clicked the TV on, and figured I'd call again in an hour. By 9, I was getting worried. It was unusual that Lucy hadn't sent me a message. I told myself they'd gone off for a meal or to the pictures or something normal. I was being irrational. The phone rang at 10:32 p.m. It was the police. They had found Lucy. She was okay, but very upset. They were going to bring her home, but needed to talk to me. What did they mean? Found her. The doorbell rang and Lucy rushed in. She looked terrified and threw herself onto me, sobbing and shaking. I folded my arms around her and noticed the female police officer's sad smile. After Lucy had calmed down, she went upstairs and crashed. She fell fast asleep. The police officer told me what had happened. Lucy and her friend Kathy were abducted by a man, M, and an accomplice. We don't know exactly what happened yet, but there was a sexual element to this. Lucy managed to run away but got lost. The sexual contact seems to have been minimal, with Lucy at least. I didn't say a word. I just stared. Kathy was 12 and Lucy's BFF. The police officer continued. There's something else. Has Lucy told you about the Snapchat messages? And I shook my head. I downloaded Snapchat for a few days, I think, but it didn't interest me. It was clearly aimed at kids. When Lucy asked me if she could download it onto her phone, I said yes. I was probably tired or just didn't think about it. Reading the messages that night was terrible. They started off light and vague, but it didn't take long for me to see what was happening. The police officer told me that M wasn't a child. He was an adult, was known to police, and it was called grooming. Lucy hadn't been in contact for long, but Kathy had been groomed for much, much longer. Kathy had given Lucy's Snapchat username to M and told her that this really hot guy was into her, that she should accept his friend request and talk to him. M lives 2 miles outside of our town. I'm not going to tell you his name or his address. Lucy and Kathy had gone to the local park to meet him. He had talked them into going somewhere secret, an abandoned gasworks, where he tried to sexually abuse them. Lucy fought him off and started running. It was very dark, she didn't know where she was, and her phone had no signal. She saw some lights in the distance, so ran towards them. Miraculously, a police car had been driving by and spotted her near the edge of the road. Before the police officer left, she asked if I wanted to press charges against M. I said yes without a moment's hesitation. The guilt was almost overwhelming. Why hadn't I known? Why did I let her have Snapchat? What the hell have I done? I crucified myself. We were so close. I thought she told me everything. Why hadn't she told me about M? Those feelings quickly gave way to blind rage. It's hard to express the level of anger I felt towards these men, but I'll come back to that. When I stopped at her door that night, her sleep wasn't peaceful. Her hands were clenched into fists and she was grinding her teeth. I will never forgive these men for the anguish they put on her face. 2 days later, we were visited by specially trained CID officers and a woman from social services. I cooperated fully with everyone and let Lucy give a statement. I also agreed to give the police Lucy's phone and iPad so they could go through them and retrieve any evidence. Over the next 6 months, Lucy was interviewed 7 times, not just about the abduction, but other events and abuses that she had witnessed. Once, she spent over an hour giving video evidence while I sat downstairs in a specially designed house for interviewing children who were victims of abuse. She was treated really well on each occasion and offered counseling and support. At first, it was hard to convince Lucy to tell the truth, not because she was dishonest, but because she had been groomed. Everyone, myself included, had become the enemy. She wanted to protect both Kathy and M. He's nice, Dad. He's not done anything wrong. I don't know where I found the patience to reason with her. My instinct was to shake her and scream, "Don't be stupid, he wants to hurt you." But she was 11 and had been groomed and couldn't see that. We talked a lot and I explained that I wouldn't betray her. I told her she could tell me anything and that I'd only tell the police what she agreed I could. That wasn't 100% true. I would email the CID officer if she told me anything that I felt needed to be shared. The officer would tell Lucy she had found out from someone else. I felt bad about that, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. The police were really good with Lucy. They weren't patronizing and they listened to her, but the whole thing cost her a lot of internal conflict and pain. She was torn between protecting her BFF and her groomer while not wanting to lie to me or the police. It was really tough on her. She would alternate between silence, denial, anger, and sobbing. M was charged with child abduction and offenses under sections 14 and 15 of the Sexual Offenses Act of 2003 and released on bail. I wanted him to be imprisoned, but that's not how the law works. His initial bail conditions included him having no contact with Lucy by any means, but he contacted her via email and her Xbox, so the police were able to place further restrictions on him. He wasn't allowed within the limits of the town, unless he had a specific reason to be driving through it. The limits of the town were defined by the 30 per mile speed signs. Despite being arrested, charged, and on bail, it was very clear that the groomer was not going to stop. That is really important to understand. They will not let your child go, no matter what. With that realization, I became absolutely determined to make it as tough as possible for M to get to my daughter. I changed my shifts at work so I could wait for Lucy's bus to come in. Often, there would be a police car there as well. I walked her to the bus stop in the morning and was in daily contact with the school. She was not allowed access to any device that could be linked to the internet, including her Xbox and Nintendo 3DS. Her world was severely restricted and she was not happy, but I felt I had to do it. She was not allowed to go anywhere without me or have any sleepovers. I felt sorry for her, but I just couldn't risk it. The one occasion I let her go to a friend's house for tea, Lucy messaged M using her friend's phone. alone. I had a small network of friends who would help me. If they saw M in town, they would ring me and I would call the police. This may seem OTT, but as far as I was concerned, myself and the pedophile were at war. M broke his bail conditions regularly, but police found it impossible to catch him. You see, he wasn't acting alone. He had people who would drive him to meet Kathy, then act as lookouts, texting him if they saw me or the police around. Kathy was in love and in relationship with M, Lucy told me. And of course, Kathy refused to give statements to the police, cooperate with social services, or surrender her phones. As a result of being groomed and abducted, Lucy was placed on the Child Protection Register. She was considered to be at high risk of sexual exploitation. It is hard to describe the trauma of sitting in a room with social services, a welfare officer, a CID officer, a nurse, and an educator, while they described the severe risks they felt my daughter faced. I considered myself a total failure. I couldn't protect my own child. They talked about bi-weekly home visits, about access to her room, about therapists, sexualized behavior, counselors, strategies, teams, psychologists. They talked about weight loss and about the cuts on her arms and legs. My little girl had started to self-harm. There were deep, dark cuts on her arms that must have really hurt. I could not believe that I hadn't seen them. Some of them were very fresh. Others had started to heal. She had hidden them under the long sleeves of her school jumper and pajamas. I asked what she had used, and she said the ring pulls off Coke cans. When asked why she did it, she didn't know. Kids don't always know why they do these things. The social workers and police suggested that I search her room and remove anything from the house that could be used to hurt herself. I wept when I searched Lucy's room for hidden phones and razor blades, and when I locked all the sharp objects and medicines in a steel box. I couldn't believe that this was happening. Lucy's behavior suffered greatly. She had over 50 detentions in her first 2 terms in high school. She spent more time in detention than in class. She was disruptive, defiant, devious, withdrawn, rude, and angry. She became a problem child. I kept thinking, well, yeah, I'm not surprised she's angry. You'd be angry too. When I got angry, I caused a social worker concern. When I defended her, I was being naive. Most of the time, I tried to appear compliant and reasonable, but that was an act. On the inside, I was in hell. If I wanted to take her out of the country to go shopping or to see her granddad, I had to ring social services so they could inform the police that an at-risk child was traveling out of the country. I had to let them know where she would be staying and who with, and provide dates of birth, addresses, phone numbers. Staying overnight without me was out of the question. I agreed to everything. My single focus was keeping her safe, so I did what was suggested. I'd have done pretty much anything to make sure she was safe. I trusted that they knew best. Lucy's initial social worker made it clear to me that if I didn't cooperate, they would get a court order to remove her into care. That really pissed me off. I am still annoyed that she did that, but I'll get over it. The grooming was initially carried out via Snapchat. It's the platform that seems most favored by pedophiles for 2 reasons. 1, it's used mostly by children. 2, some messages self-delete after a few moments of being read. That makes it very difficult for police to access image or text evidence. I have to say that several police officers told me that Snapchat, as a company, are very slow and difficult to deal with in regard to retrieving evidence. The worst part of the Snapchat grooming, worse even than the sexual element, was the way M manipulated her into thinking that he was the only one who understood and would protect her. He was her best friend, her confidant, her Superman. I was the enemy, along with friends, teachers, and especially the police. And I couldn't believe the speed at which M worked on her. He took the normal insecurities that any 11-year-old girl has about her body and her looks and used them. He complimented her, flattered her, boosted her self-esteem, gained her trust, and tried to make her fall in love like he had with Kathy. Once he had her trust and the keys to her self-esteem, he could control her by making her feel bad if she didn't do what he wanted. It's really that simple. Lucy felt that she needed him, that he was looking after her. I didn't realize how vulnerable she was, and it broke my heart. Reading all the messages was very painful. Sometimes a part of me would get angry at my daughter. I thought, how can you be so bloody stupid and fall for this stuff? But she was only 11. She can't always see what's going on below the surface. She trusts and believes and thinks he means it. He made her feel special and beautiful and grown up. She's a child and isn't worldly enough to cope with the level of coercion and control that M employed. Once these pedophiles pedophiles have control, they can start to exploit them. They can meet them, coerce them, get them drunk, drug them, have sex with them, video them, photograph them, even sell or trade them. It's terrifying. Girls of Lucy's age are fiercely loyal to their friends. Friendships and their social lives are everything. It's a really intense and emotional age, and pedophiles know this. M and his gang would use blackmail. They would threaten to hurt Kathy if Lucy told the police, and vice versa. It was hard to break through that. These men are organized, clever, and relentless. Once they have a child on the hook, they will not let her go. And it's not just girls. Boys can be groomed, abducted, and raped. They get them via online games, through PlayStations or Xboxes, as well as phones and iPads. They will give your child phones you know nothing about. I found a phone under Lucy's mattress that she had been given by one of M's gang. They are ceaseless, devious, and it's very hard to stop them. Even after I had taken everything off Lucy, they got to her at school. Kathy and Lucy would hide in toilet cubicles, and M would FaceTime them on a secret phone or iPod. They were shown how to piggyback off someone else's Wi-Fi. The school tried to keep the girls apart, but they cannot monitor every single child. Obviously, I considered quitting my job and moving. Just get away from it all. For Lucy, though, leaving her school, her friends, family, home, and everything familiar, it seemed even more traumatic. I wanted to keep her life as normal and constant as possible. There was also a sickening realization. If there were this number of pedophiles in a population of 5,000, where was it safe to move to? I have seen M 11 times. He has deliberately come to my workplace, presumably to try and intimidate or provoke me. I try to be peaceful, positive, and loving, but if I thought I could get away with it, I would beat him until he was dead. Fighting the rage has been a daily process for nearly a year. I have some good friends who have helped, and I've used other techniques to help me stay calm. Prayer, exercise, and music. I don't drink or do drugs, but often wished I did. There was something a SID officer once said, and it stayed with me. I would want to kill him too. I've got kids, but think about it. Who would look after Lucy while you were in prison? Because you would be charged, you would be tried, and you would be imprisoned. I couldn't let that happen. I had to stay focused on being there for Lucy. I would often feel like a coward, a weak man, a failure, but to this day, I have not hit him. The CPS dropped the case against M, and he was released from his bail restrictions on the 23rd of April, 2017. It is very difficult to secure reliable witnesses and statements from children who are being groomed. I'll leave it there. I have to be careful what I say. It wasn't the fault of the police. They tried everything to get him. I have nothing but admiration and respect for every officer involved. They know he's a threat, and Lucy isn't the first child he's groomed and abducted. She won't be the last. It's one thing knowing. It's another thing proving. M also had help from other men who provided alibis, gave him phones, ferried him around in the backs of their cars, and let him use their houses or flats to meet up with children. They are as guilty as he is. Police gave me the names of 5 local men who they consider to be a threat to Lucy and to other girls her age. Police monitor them, but they can't just arrest them. Having local officers on the street was definitely instrumental in protecting my daughter. Lucy felt safer, and it made M's life more difficult. The day after the case was dropped, M was served with a child abduction warning notice at my request. It means if he approaches Lucy in any way, I can have him arrested for attempting to abduct her again. It's currently all I can do, legally. I held it together for the whole investigation, but M came to my place of work on the day the case was dropped and smiled at me. I tried to attack him and nearly lost my job. I couldn't bear to see him smiling. I took 2 weeks off of work, something I never thought I'd do. It's not in my nature to take days off or to seek help, but I had to. I think I would have collapsed from the tension. The whole nightmare just caught up with me, and I couldn't cope anymore. It seemed like M had won. He was free. I swallowed my male pride and my fear, and went to see a psychologist. I had to keep it together for Lucy's sake. She needed me. So I had to deal with it all. The sea of guilt, anger, shame, everything. The time off and the sessions with the psychologist helped. I was grudgingly able to talk it through and get some perspective on things. I'm not ashamed to say that after each session, on my own, I sobbed like a child. He hadn't won, and he wasn't free. He was trapped in the hell of being a pedophile, and he would be caught. Not this time, but one day. He hadn't managed to get my little girl, and she would be fine. She's a tough cookie. Lucy had her own counselor, and I know she finds it useful to be able to talk about things that bother her. I'm her dad, not her best friend or her therapist. There are things she needs to talk to other people about, and I'm 100% happy with that. I am incredibly proud of her. It has been hard for me, so I can't even begin to imagine what it's been like for her. Advice. Firstly, you will have to fight to get your child back, because pedophiles will not let them go. You have to take back the control. Talk to your kids. Have conversations about grooming. Get it out in the open. It's dark and it's horrible, yes, but it's real and it needs to be talked about. Check their phones. Get access, passwords, usernames. Sod the tantrums and outrage. You might think it's intrusive or over the top, but the alternative is far worse. Keep up to date, because they change their passwords and usernames like socks. They will often have more than one account, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, or YouTube. Don't be fobbed off. If they are being groomed, they will be devious. Observe them while they are texting. Look for anything unusual. Trust your instincts. With Snapchat or any social media sites, check their contacts and don't be fooled. Groomers will pose as children of both sexes, and they will have childish names like Watermelon 66, Kiss Kiss, Bebe, Daisy Love. Find out who they are. Are these contacts and friends actually people she knows in real life? Get details. Check stuff out. No teacher will ever accept or send friend requests to pupils. Why is your kid chatting on WhatsApp or sharing pictures on Instagram with a man who works at the local supermarket? Question things. If your child is being controlled by pedophiles, you will have to be clever and thorough. Here's an example. Lucy asked me this morning if she could go out to the park and meet up with two friends, Alicia and Mary. I said okay, and we agreed a time she needed to be back and that I checked she had credit on her phone. I almost immediately logged into her Snapchat account without her knowledge or permission and checked her messages. It was clear that she was meeting up with her friends, so that was good. Had she sent messages that didn't fit with what she had told me, I would have stopped the whole event. I'm not interested in snooping or worrying that they may swear or talk about boys. I just need to be sure that she's not being groomed. Do I feel good about it? No. Will I keep doing it? Yes. I know the girls she's meeting up with. I make sure I know the parents' numbers and the girls' numbers. When kids are being groomed, they will lie, hide things, and you will know absolutely nothing about it. You have to get involved. Be proactive and strict. If Lucy changes a password, I will know and her phone will be taken away. Don't make assumptions about pedophiles or grooming. You don't know what they are like. They are not stereotypes and they are not often strangers. They can be good-looking, affable 19-year-olds that your kids know. They are not all middle-aged men. Pedophile rings have scouts. These scouts are older kids that help them catch fresh meat. That fresh meat is your child. Your happy and innocent kid can be upstairs right now, making and posting videos and/or vlogs on music.ly or YouTube. There's nothing wrong with that, but get them to show you. Make it a positive, fun thing. They can be surprisingly enjoyable. Just keep an eye on it, because pedophiles will scrutinize these videos for both masturbatory pleasure and to see if there are jumpers, shirts, or blazers with school logos on. If they get a school, they get a location. If they get a location, they can scout, hook, and take. They want personal information. Can you see any geographical landmarks in the background through the window? Are there books on their desks with their names on? Lucy knew M. He hung around the skate park. That's why she trusted him. Lucy knew about staying away from strangers. She knew not to accept friend requests from people she didn't know. M was a face she was vaguely familiar with. He was just around. He waited in the shadows until she was the right age for him. You see, they have preferences. Blonde, blue-eyed, 8-year-old girls, 11-year-old black or Asian girls, 5-year-old boys. My little girl was fresh meat. This may be obvious, but cooperate with the police. If you don't, it makes it so much easier for the pedophiles. Trust me, a case can completely collapse because a family won't cooperate. The police are not interested in your lifestyle or your past. They don't care if you smoke a bit of weed or if your house is messy. They just want to stop pedophiles. Do you know how to make sure SnapMap is set to ghost mode? I didn't even know that it shared the exact location of your child. I've had to become tech savvy quickly. Now, I know how to set all Lucy's apps so only her friends can see what she posts. I link Lucy's iTunes account and her phone to mine, so I can see all her contacts and every email she sends or receives. I've been online and researched it. If Lucy wants to download an app to her phone, she has to request authorization from me. I have to key in a code that she doesn't know. None of it is 100% foolproof. but it's better. Kids need, want, and like boundaries and conditions. I recently read the transcript of a police interview that Lucy had. One small exchange jumped out. Police: do you like living with your dad? Lucy: yeah, he looks after me and cares about me. He is strict and doesn't just let me do whatever I want. Police: how does that make you feel? Lucy: safe. I feel guilty every day. I wish I could go back and change it. I should have been more aware of the risks of phones and Xboxes. I shouldn't have let her have a Facebook profile. I thought it was okay. I was busy or tired. I wanted her to have what her friends had. I wanted her to amuse herself while I did my own thing. I wanted to be a cool dad or have an easy life. I cannot change any of it. I can only deal with today. Hope. On the 3rd of April 2017, a new law came into effect that makes grooming a criminal offense. The official terminology is sexual communication with a child. That is fantastic news. It carries a 2-year custodial sentence. It was too late for Lucy, but it is a major step forward. Yesterday, I attended another meeting with Lucy's social worker and school counselor. It was very positive. Lucy is doing much better at school. She hasn't cut herself for a long time, and the scars are now faint. She goes on sleepovers again and has an iPhone, with conditions and with the knowledge and permission of her social worker. Her social worker still visits once a week, but she is cautiously happy with Lucy's progress. She might even be taken off the child protection register in September if they are happy that M and his gang are not continuing to groom her. Police, social services, schools, and a lot of local people know who M is, and he is watched like a hawk. There are other girls, other families that are going through this. I know that for him, it's an obsession, and he will not stop until he is prosecuted and locked away. I made it as difficult as possible for M to get to my daughter, but sadly, there are still problems. This afternoon, 2 of the men whose names are on the list that the police gave me were waiting at Lucy's school bus stop. I got held up and was running late. They followed her into a nearby supermarket. She told a member of staff that she was afraid, and they looked after her until I arrived. I've spoken to the police, and they will try and have a squad car at the bus stop tomorrow. Of course, following a child into a shop isn't against the law, nor standing at a school bus stop and staring at a child, nor is whispering obscenities or spitting in her general direction in the street. It's just scary as hell for a 12-year-old girl. Lucy is sat on the floor in front of me now, happy and singing, doing her homework. Every day that she is free of M is a victory. I hug her a lot, tell her that I love her, and try to make life as normal as possible. I make sure that I'm there for her. Actions speak louder than words. I'm her dad, and I want to protect her. I don't let her see me cry, and I don't let her see that I'm scared. I have no idea what the future holds. But for today, Dad is winning. This is very important for people to listen to, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. This type of grooming has been going on for years, a lot longer than recently. My personal experience with a child sex abuser. It's so weird how often I see this and I think, oh my god, this is exactly what he did to me. The man was my best friend's father. My best friend at the time, when I was the age that this happened. He was divorced from his wife, and his daughter only came out for weekend visits, stuff like that. She came out on holidays and during summer break and stuff. That was when we hung out. When I would go over there to visit or spend the night or just to play, he would often join us. He would have me sit on his lap, he would rub my arms, tell me that I was beautiful, tell me that I was growing into such a beautiful young lady, and that he just loved the color of my hair, the color of my eyes, loved hearing me laugh. He did all this stuff. He did everything that was in this article, except for, he didn't have a gang, and he didn't try to contact me after he'd gotten in trouble, mostly because he was in jail. But he would tell me that if I told anybody, that the courts would take my friend away, that she would go live with her mother, and I'd never see her again. And that was one of the reasons why I never told anybody what had happened for a while. It actually had come up because I was actually talking to my best friend. I was talking to her about something about menstruation. She was trying to tell me that the only reason a woman bleeds is because she has sex, at which I told her that, her dad had touched me and I wasn't bleeding. And she actually told her mom that, and her mom was the one that contacted CPS. I was so scared to tell them because of what he had told me, that I would never see my friend again, that I would have no contact with her. because she would go live with her mom forever. It was only on the reassurances of both my friend's mom and my own parents that they would make sure that we'd be able to see each other that I finally opened up and told them exactly what he had done to me. And before anybody says, you know, where's the proof? I can go find you a court case, but I'm not going to. Not because I'm afraid of doxing myself. I don't really give a shit about that. I don't want to dox my abuser because he did his time. I was lucky enough that he was prosecuted, and now he's a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. He's done his time. I don't want to risk somebody getting his name and his address and doing vigilante justice for what happened to me. I'm satisfied with the justice that I got for what happened to me. I don't want anybody else to go out and try to find him. So parents, keep an eye on your kids. You're not meant to be their best friend. You're meant to be their parent. You are the one thing protecting them from these monsters. Protect your children. Be that nosy, overbearing, overprotective parent. Know what they're doing all the time when they're online, because these people, these monsters, can attack in a snap, and they will warp your child in ways that you will not even be able to comprehend. And that's going to do it for me. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a big old thumbs up, share and subscribe, and help the channel grow. In the description below, you'll find links to my Redbubble store as well as my Patreon so you can financially help the channel grow. There is also a new t-shirt out at Teespring. It is the first official t-shirt featuring the alien princess. So if you want to wear everybody's favorite alien princess in a sexy nurse costume on your chest, this is a t-shirt for you. You can look in the description below for a link to that as well. And you can check out the other things that I have on Teespring because the fag shirt is still available. It's still up. It's on a constant reprint, so you can get that too. Anyway, thanks everybody for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next video. Fins, out.